And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Thursday, May 29th. Oh, we're almost into June. Not quite there yet, but it's going to start feeling like it as we turn the corner into the weekend. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, I don't know if you've looked outside, but it is hazy, and that is all Canadian wildfire smoke that's pouring into much of the north and central part of the state. It's So if you're a little sensitive to some of that wildfire smoke, you might notice that if you're doing any outdoor activities. Not only today, but also tomorrow. That smoke could even get a little thicker around the area tomorrow. And then the conditions, as the winds, upper-level winds shift a little bit as we head into the weekend, then things might improve just a touch. So I don't know if you've got it that bad at your house or if you've even been outside to notice, but yeah, it's pretty thick here.
Well, I don't think this is something you cannot notice, whether you're indoors or outdoors. It's certainly going to affect things. And we've talked in summers past about, does that affect our crop growth? I don't think we're there yet. We'd have to have multiple days with heavy coverage that would be blocking the sun to really start filtering our growing degree days. But we will be picking those up as we go towards weekend. We'll be getting more degree days, and I bet our wheat's going to very quickly go from that 3 to 4 leaf stage to higher.
Yes, and then the moisture next week as well, so that will help out. As well. In fact, yeah, we do have some rain in the forecast, and nothing in the short term though. But as we head into next week, that's when things do start to change. We've got temperatures out there right now in the low 70s, and we'll make it up into the mid to upper 70s today, with a west-northwest wind on the light side, about 5 to 10 under. Hazy sunshine, we'll call it. And then tonight we'll have clear skies, but again, that wildfire smoke kind of filtering the skies, lows into the mid-50s. There is a halfway decent chance, could see the northern lights tonight. They were visible last night in areas of northern Minnesota. Obviously, the wildfire smoke might play a little bit into that, but you might be able to catch those tonight. And then Friday, we're looking at a little bit warmer temperatures, low to mid 80s, and a little breezier with west winds of 10 to 20. And again, that hazy sunshine from the Canadian smoke. And then over the weekend, we do start to warm things up. Mid upper 80s on Saturday, upper 80s on Sunday, breezy conditions out of the northwest. And then Monday, we'll start to see that humidity increase ahead of a storm system that'll be riding in from the west with highs mid upper 80s on Monday. And then a good chance for storms Monday night and into Tuesday. Some of those storms could be on the strong side. We'll keep a close eye on those. And then a few leftover showers on Wednesday. And then things will dry out for Thursday and Friday of next week with cooler weather back into the 70s. So all in all, not a bad-looking forecast. We got the summer heat. We've got a little bit of moisture coming in next week. And we're getting pretty strong indications of a half inch to an inch widespread across much of the area. So good news again. We've dried it out now for about a week, and now we'll again get some more rain as we head into next week. And then the following weekend, we could see another storm system coming into the area with another shot of some rain as well. We're getting in again to that stormier part of the LRC cycle here, and we'll see an additional stormy round, as we said, at the end of June into early July. So things will be a little more active during the month of June around here.
Well, I have a message for you from Mike, Tony, Blair, Phil, Mitch, and anybody who has hay that they've cut and that's laying on the ground, Dean. They want you to stop asking for rain, stop predicting rain, and remember that we get a better crop when we have drier conditions than we have wet. So
okay,
no more of that.
Don't kill the messenger.
Rule of thumb from these guys. Hey. These guys would just like to get what they need done.
I hear you. And they'll get it done. They always do.
All right. So I do also want to go back to, actually, I think this was on Tuesday. We were going to talk about some research being done at UC Davis in California, and we haven't had a chance to get back to visit about that. Researchers at UC Davis in California have figured out that for those who have celiac disease and other issues where they're concerned about gluten intolerance, there is some chance that you might be able to go back to enjoying the bread that you always did just because of the wheat they're looking at raising. With gene editing, they're able to delete a cluster of genes in wheat that generates gluten. Okay, what does gluten do? Well, it's the protein that gives breads, pastas, and more their texture and elasticity. But if they remove certain proteins that trigger autoimmune reactions, they can make bread making a much more enjoyable situation for those who have been diagnosed with celiac disease and more. Now, gluten is comprised of two proteins, glutenins and gliadines, and deleting them all lowers the quality of the bread. But if they can just take out the alpha gliadines, that's what causes the severe reaction in people with celiac disease. So the work is currently being done. They are breeding the wheat. They said there would be nothing special that you would have to do with the seeds. You would not raise it any differently than what you already are doing with a wheat crop, but this could be a change due to gene editing that would happen in the seed. Gene editing also helps us to bring that seed to market faster than what we do with traditional breeding programs. And so we've got a couple of things in front of us here where keep an eye out. If we can see this wheat seed make the market, it does impact what we see for folks in their overall health and some of their purchasing decisions, right? Because often you have folks looking in the gluten-free aisle because of celiac disease.
Right. And how would this differ from the gluten-free wheat and bread that's out there right now?
Because the gluten-free wheat and bread that's out there right now is probably not a wheat flour. It's likely made from something else like a rye, etc.
Okay.
And so, yeah, or maybe peas, whatever the case might be, they're using something completely, a different crop entirely in order to try to do that. But unfortunately, you don't always get the same consistency and texture that you would with a wheat gluten. Now, often I hear folks talk about, when I eat breads, etc., my gut doesn't feel good. They're not necessarily celiac, but also there's a difference in how proteins are processed. And when I say the proteins, let's go back to wheat is comprised of proteins that gives it the gluten, etc. And there was research being done a year ago at the University of Minnesota that said if we change from short form processing to longer form, so people who maybe try sourdough and find that they like it better, it has to do with the processing of the flour, also has to do with how the yeasts are developed. That can be easier on your system as well. So if you think you might be gluten intolerant, that could also be part of the situation. So yes, there's a lot going on, and we might see some great changes happening when it comes to what we're going to see for folks who are looking for gluten in their diet, again, based on what they were told before when they shouldn't. So it might be changing.
That's good all around. And like we were talking about yesterday, probably going to be a little more expensive, but hey, I mean, at least at the onset. But it's worth it.
And when it comes to the price of it, when things are first released, you've got to recoup your initial development cost. So as the market picks up, you likely will start to see that cost come down. But yes, initially it could be something that's a little bit more expensive right off the bat. Don't know what that looks like yet. We're still in the production phases of bringing that wheat to market in some way, shape, or form. We're going to see what it does. Very excited about watching it.
Yeah.
One other thing we're excited about watching is making sure that if you have an interest as a student, or if you have a student who might be interested in being an intern for us with Weather and Ag in Focus, always happy to take those applications. You can reach out to me at ag@flagfamily.com. You can also reach out to Dean with questions about weather. When you want to give him your advice on what the weather should be, you can reach him weather@flagfamily.com. We'll take phone calls all through the show today, and you can reach us on the Red Wing Shoe, on the JLA Insurance phone line, and that is 701-293-9000. We appreciate all of those who are watching on our Facebook and YouTube channels. You can find us WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus. Again, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Acres TV. Well, soon we will be joined by our guest. That'll be Mark Wagner. He is with ND Estate Services, and there is always something new and exciting going on with as far as Mark is concerned in making sure that his clients are thinking ahead about farm transition. Some of those statistics that stand out so high to us include the fact that in the next 15 years, we're going to see a major shift in farm ownership in that transition planning. And we're looking at least 40% of cropland turnover to new folks who haven't been in ownership before. That may mean family members, that may mean groups of folks, investors, etc. Well, how does that affect you if you're the potential landowner, or what if you're one of the children or someone who stands to inherit? What are some things you should be doing now to make those transitions go a lot smoother? So we'll talk with Mark about those today. And there'll be so much more. We've always got a full slate and agenda to visit about. Haven't even gotten into any of the headlines for today, but we'll start doing that after we return from a market update from the American Ag Network. Oh, your technology is supposed to work smoothly, just like that ground that you're out there doing tillage on. I was in a conversation earlier today with a fellow working in some fertilizer just ahead of planting dry edible beans. And if your technology is not working that smoothly, whether it's in the tractor, at the farm, at your bin site, you're going to want to talk to Tech Support Farm. Chris Sherman can help you out. In fact, just go to his website and do his self-assessment with the check fence, or fence check, I should say, and make sure that you know all the things that are being done well or where you could do some improvement. And Chris can help you out with those. Again, techsupportfarm.com. And today you can reach us with any conversations and ask questions of our guests, and that is on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. That esteemed guest is Mark Wagner with ND Estate Services. Mark, okay, there's some
Bridgette.
tax things coming up soon. Oh my, are these going to affect some of your clients and those listening?
It could be. I mean, the nice thing about it is when you're in North Dakota, you learn how to roll with the punches, right, guys?
Yeah, that's for sure, right?
you learn how to put your britches on and pull your boots up and get on the horse, and another day, another dollar in the hole, right?
Right.
We just don't tolerate it. We just get it done. Well, that's what they love about North Dakota folks. We just don't tolerate. We just get it done. So.
Well, there's talk about the death tax and so forth, and is that a concern that you're having with any of your clients right now as you're doing transition planning?
Bridgette, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me again, and I want to also apologize to you, if I may. This past year, I've been the hardest gentleman to get a hold of. I've just been so busy. Sometimes I forget what day it is. I mean, so I want to apologize. I know you've been reaching out a little bit, trying to connect a little bit, and having to reschedule and stuff. So I want to say I'm sorry about that. But I'm so glad I'm here today. And then next,
I am too. Don't you worry at all. We're just glad you're here.
Well, I will share a couple benefits that we can have regarding the death tax. If that is, you think that may apply to your family, the only way a death tax would be applied to a family is if they really had a will. What I mean by a will is that's what, when you die, you get a will, Well, a will, you only can get like up to $6 million worth of deductions. And with a trust, a revocable trust, you can get up to $12.5 million per person. So I think right now you've been bumped up to 14. So we can almost get like a $28 million exemption. You know how many people in North Dakota that's going to cover?
Whoa.
That's going to cover everybody except that guy that owns that fuel plant out there by Castleton. What's his name? I can't think of his name. The billionaire. Or maybe Burgum. They ain't going to cover Burgum. He's going to need something else,
Right.
The other thing I would say, if a death tax is a consideration and you guys, the good Lord has just smiled upon your family and you have an estate where I'm helping a family right now that has over 25 quarters of land. It's just, you would not believe it, and they're tell them, and you'd never know it just by talking. They're so plain down to earth. That's what I love about up here in North Dakota, and they were really concerned about that. And I said, well, about the taxes, if you have family members, your son or your daughter nowadays that wants to farm or ranch with you, and you have grandkids and they want to keep this in the family because after all, your dad and his dad had it before you, why don't you just instead of being subject to these laws, why don't you use the laws to try to help your family?
Right.
That would make the most common sense. And I was thinking about North Dakota, we're common sense folks, right? Meaning that put it in an irrevocable trust. And that way, if there's ever a divorce, so-and-so can't take half the farm or the ranch, someone gets killed, they can't take the land away from the family. It's going to stay there. There's always a contingency. You can have alternate trustees. I mean, there's just so much more to offer. And the only time that it wouldn't necessarily be a good thing is oftentimes I find out banks, if you're heavily leveraged on your property. In other words, you're what do they want to say? You're mortgaged up to your gills. You ever heard that term before? I think I can relate to that one. You're mortgaged up to your gills, boys. The banks don't like it when you set up an irrevocable trust because if it's done properly, they won't get a penny from the estate. And so I don't know if you guys remember, there was that farmer up there and by Devil's Lake. You remember that about half a dozen years ago, where he was into Choice Financial for like $50 million.
Ooh.
Does that ring a bell a little bit?
About.
Well, anyway.
Yep, it does for me.
Anyway, he had this wonderful vacation lake that him and his family went to. Beautiful recreational area. I don't know how many millions it was worth. He put it in an irrevocable trust. So when he filed for bankruptcy, they couldn't get that. But his daughters, God bless his daughters, say, Dad, that's not the right thing to do. So what they did is they turned that over to the creditors. But if people want to, they can lock things up tighter. And there's a lot of different phrases I can use right now. But you need some WD-40 to penetrate it. You need to get out the penetrating oil, boys. I told you what, boys. Dad would say, well, put some more diesel fuel on that thing too,
And Mark, is it with the revocable trust? I mean, obviously, the older you get, the more you probably think about it. But you want to think about this early, not late.
Yeah. When you're a farmer or you're a business owner, everybody needs a revocable living trust. And what I mean by that, because everybody has personal property. You have personal bank accounts. You got vehicles. You got a personal house that's in your personal name. You may have a brokerage account. You have tools. You have this. You have all this personal stuff. And that there, when you have a will set up for the estate, well, what happens with a will is when you die with a will, you no longer have a Social Security number associated with you. I don't know if you knew that or not. Your Social Security number terminates.
Mm-hmm.
You ever talk to somebody and saying, yeah, we had to give our Social Security check back because Mom died. They wouldn't let her keep the... Well, that's exactly what happens. When you die, you don't have a Social Security number anymore. So your legal definition is called a corpse. Now, Sherry may say I look like a corpse. She may say I act like a corpse. I smell like a corpse, good night. But you're a corpse. Corpses in the state of North Dakota don't have any legal right to have property. So even though you have a will, the only way assets are going to be transferred is through a judge. But before that transfer can happen, after a probate, in other words, it's advertised and everything. But this is where the sad part really happens, and I say that because I get calls.
Sure.
All the cash is spent because Mom and Dad needed the cash, so there's a bunch of land, and the attorneys, by judges' orders, they always get paid first before the beneficiaries do. So if there's no cash left in the estate, guess how the legal people get paid?
They sell land.
They put liens on property. Your kids will never inherit a clean bill of title. All because you had a what, Bridgette? A will.
It was spending habit.
Well, I have that too. My wife has that too. I'm more like a squirrel. I like to save all my nuts and stuff. But no, what happens is all the cash is gone because you spent the cash because you and your wife needed it for whatever, for your health care. Well, the attorneys, by judges' orders, they always get paid before the beneficiaries of the estate do. So, but if all the cash is gone, how the attorneys get paid is put liens on property. So your kids will never inherit a clean bill of title. And oftentimes the bill, if it's a six-figure bill, which it could be, in case there was a piston match in a will, they can contest things. And the fees go astronomical. So there could be a six-figure bill. And oftentimes for them to keep the property, they're going to have to sell it just to settle up with the probate fees. And that is so sad. All because you had a will. Attorneys are not fiduciaries, Bridgette. You know what that means?
Big difference. There's a big difference. But hold that thought, because I need you to explain that right after we come back from the news, Mark. So don't go anywhere. Then you're going to tell us the difference between the fiduciaries and all of the ways that matters. Be right back with Mark Wagner. Oh, you've been following along with Here We Grow 2025 as we're raising wheat this year. And some of those folks who've been partners with us would include Progressive Ag. In fact, we just had Ray Grabansky in studio earlier this week. If you are looking to talk to a risk management specialist who can guide your decisions from wheat and corn to potatoes and livestock, you would want to talk to the folks at Progressive Ag. And they also have crop insurance as one of their services. And then also Vision Ford out of Wahpeton. They are currently extending their employee pricing so that you can benefit from that if you'd like to make sure that one of those blue Ford ovals comes home to your place. And they'll come out and service as well as deliver vehicles right at your farm so that you don't have to make that extra trip to town, especially if you live a little distance away from Wahpeton. And one of those other sponsors that goes with our Here We Grow project, well, that would be Mark Wagner, who's in studio today. And Mark, okay, you were going to talk about the difference
Okay.
between, let's see, did I write this all down? The will versus, let's see, there was another item you were going to say, having a will versus having the trust. Was that the
Yeah,
difference you were going to talk about? Yeah.
that's what people are kind of looking for, and what I think I might
Mm-hmm.
have started to allude to is you have to remember that attorneys aren't necessarily fiduciaries. Fiduciary,
Right.
if you
Yes.
get on your phone and do a little bit of searching, a fiduciary has to always act in the best interest. Not that they don't try to act in the best interest, but a will has to be probated, so it's going to come back through their office when you die, and that can
Mm-hmm.
be tremendously expensive. I have a lot of people that I've talked to. They paid over six figures to the attorneys through that, and
Oof.
they don't have to because they can say, well, at the time it was in their best interest. But I'm not here to minimize or marginalize them, but oftentimes that's what they recommend because it's simple. They don't have to. The reason why they don't recommend a trust is because a trust, if it's not properly funded, it goes through probate anyway. So a lot of attorneys don't have the staff to do all that non-legal administration. You're not going to the FSA. You don't get your quit claim deed filed. You don't get your vehicles in there. The trust certificate's not over at the sale barn. Your deferred weight contracts at the elevator, they're not in there. So the attorney, that's all called non-legal administration, and attorneys don't do that. So what they do is they'll hand you what they call a letter of instruction there, Bridgette, and you're supposed to figure
Mm-hmm.
everything out because you're so smart, right? Because you're
And have all the
smart.
time in the world.
And but
Yes.
what happens is you start looking at this black thing that's in our hand that we carry around like it's glued to our brain or something, and you finally break down for another $500 an hour, right? And you don't have
Because we
five
don't
to
have the
seven
time.
thousand dollars in a simple trust. Now you got that's a walk in the park. That's like a day at Lake Lida. Now you got maybe 10, 15, 20 grand wrapped up in the thing. All because you didn't have people helping you, serving you, and that's where we come into play. So when we do is after a trust is put together, people never have to use our legal referrals, but if they do, everything's on a flat fee. And then I charge a fee for everything we need to do, but it's a fee that never has to be paid again, but we're here to service, and that's what most people need. People, when they leave a place, what really sticks to them is that, okay, I never have to get my checkbook out again. We're here for annual reviews. We also help for settlement. We take notes. We take records of everything. We make sure everything is properly funded. Now, what it leads back over to, attorneys aren't necessarily fiduciaries. So he could make. I helped a gentleman here, South Central North Dakota, that every time he sees his attorney, yeah, that's going to be in your trust too. It's going to be in my trust. Going to be in my trust. Finally called me, and what he was describing is the guy had. I don't mean to laugh, but they get away with his crap. The guy had a testamentary trust that he has a $20 million estate. So in other words, everything has to be probated before the kids get it. Then he puts himself as a trustee of the estate. So in addition to legal fees, probate fees, he also gets what? Trustee fees. The guy just put $2 million in his pocket. I mean, and talking about bad days for attorneys, I'm helping this one gentleman in central Minnesota, and his net worth is well exceeds $25 million. And the first thing he said to me, Mark, is I really just need to have you talk to my lawyers. And I said, yeah, no problem. I have no problem visiting with them. And I sat down, and and they were there looking at me, and I asked him, I said, how much of your estate did you want to end up in a probate here? He goes, I don't want one penny going through a probate. And the room just became silent. You could hear everybody just exhale. Oh, no. They would have made $3-5 million on it. Then he has, the thing about it is he has kids. Somebody has another wife. He has this. He has that. It's just going to be just a nightmare. And they're just trying to bank their retirement on that one. And I'm like, so they're not fiduciaries, what I'm trying to say. They do not have to act in what they call your perceived best interest. They don't have to. Because if they did, we wouldn't have this eminent domain in our country. They do what's right in their own eyes, just like the good book said in the Old Testament. Everybody did what was right in their what? Own eyes. What was best for them, not the person sitting across the table. I got to be careful because I'll get twisted up here pretty quick, but it just chaps me like nobody's business. Then the kids call me, and she's crying over the phone. And someone said to call Mark, and I am, and I'm just listening to him, and all I can do is give him a Kleenex because I can't do nothing. So, I mean, and then you can't. So life is what I'm really trying to say here, Bridgette and Dean, and the listeners out there, life is about choices. What kind of choice you want to leave for your family? One that's going to cause tears, financial meltdown, or do you want something that's going to provide peace, peaceful settlement, transition for the family where there's no arguments, no one's lawyering up? That's what happens when you get a good trust in place. Not just that, somebody who's willing to sit down and make sure everything is done properly. Okay, and that right there is not called thousands of dollars. That's called priceless.
Right. Absolutely. So, Mark, as you've been watching over the last year that we've been talking, have you seen an uptick in calls of folks saying, okay, we need to make some changes. We need to get this transition ball rolling sooner rather than later? Or do you feel like things are fairly flat in your world?
I'm busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. I can't kick enough butts with my one leg. How many times do you hear that on a Thursday afternoon?
Yeah, not often.
One-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. No, I'm kicking so hard my toupee fell off. So I'm trying to hold my toupee and kick at the same time. That's no good. I'm just, it's really, it's kind of like a snowball, but people, I think what happens I grew up on a dairy farm, and what we had to do, we'd have neighbors come over, they want to get a gallon of milk or whatever. Dad said, Mark, you always got to turn on the agitator. And I go, agitator? Yeah, you got to get that big thing spinning, because what will always happen is the cream will rise to the top, but it needs to be mixed in. The same way as you're talking to people, you realize the people you need to talk to, because they always rise to the top, right? And just like people want to call on your show and talk to Dean, they know who to listen to. And number one, they're tired of all the noise. People are tired of all the noise. If you want noise and you call me up, I said, why don't you just go back down to the cafe again and get all the free advice you want, or you want to have things done, And I said that's free. That ain't gonna cost you anything,
right.
So, you get to the point in your life or in your business, in your maturity and what you do for a living is we like to fan through that noise. We like to fan through it. We want to get to the real heart of the issue. Why would you want to do something that would be peaceable for your family?
So, okay, that's an excellent point. And for people who want to do the right thing for their family and they want to talk with you, Mark, how can they do that? How do they connect with you?
Well, thanks again, Bridgette. I appreciate that. First of all, when you call me, there's probably a 90% chance I'm not going to grab my phone. I'm in meetings all the time. So what you're gonna have to do is just leave me a message, And then I screen all the calls. No, then he screens them. No, absolutely not. You got to talking about this death and dying stuff. If you don't smile a little bit, get your endorphins popping, you just kind of have a depression. You have a meltdown. But no, you got to leave a message, and I promise to give you a call back. And my ears, my heart's always open to what you want to accomplish. And I bend over backwards to help people, and I do that relentlessly. All the time, and so much my wife will chew me out. So yeah, call me 701-318-0908. You can go to my website, and it if you want to go there, you can. It's not too fancy, but you can certainly go there and take a look at that if you want. And yeah.
Well, we look forward to visiting with you throughout the summer
Oh,
and our Here We Grow project,
well,
because we got
thanks.
lots of good things going on, and you always have excellent examples of why people should be doing business with you, and the lookouts, even if they don't do business with you, the lookouts and the pitfalls that they got to pay
Yeah.
attention to as they go through these transitions.
Bridgette, I'm going to say one thing here for the listeners out there. If you do have a revocable trust set up in your state, get your vehicles, your trailers, your trucks, get that title switched over so it says revocable living trust on there. If you don't know how to do it, that's very simple. Just give me a call. I can tell you. But that causes so much problems because in North Dakota we can't use what they call an assignment of personal property to put that in the trust. You're gonna have to use your pour over will, and it's gonna take a lot of time, energy, and effort that's unnecessary. Take the time, get the titles done. If you need help,
Okay.
just call me. That's so simple. I do that in my sleep, not even realizing it.
That's like our write down, don't forget to do this moment with Mark Wagner today. So that's perfect.
Along with
Thanks
your
for coming in today,
WD-40 you
Mark.
got on your side, right? your rusty crescent wrench, right?
Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you, and also the listeners out there. And just I'm so grateful I'm able to communicate things that we're passionate about here today, and it just makes all the difference in the world.
You can tell you have passion for it. That's a good thing.
Very
Yeah.
good.
That's a good thing.
Take care, you guys.
All
God
right.
bless you.
Thanks, Mark. And when we come back, we'll have a recap on the weather, and we'll hit on a couple of ag topics. All of that coming up right after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. And we're looking at some hazy sunshine. If you're wondering, hey, what is all that? That is Canadian smoke, and that's going to be with us for the next couple of days until our upper level winds kind of switch, and then that will allow us to kind of see some, more blue skies, if you will. But we'll call it mostly sunny to partly cloudy, that hazy sunshine out there. Temperatures currently in the low 70s. We'll make it up into the mid to upper 70s today, and gradual warming as we head through the weekend with low to mid 80s tomorrow, and then breezy conditions over the weekend, but not windy, and temperatures warming to more summer-like levels. Mid-upper 80s for both Saturday and Sunday with dry conditions, and then a good chance for thunderstorms as we head into Monday night and Tuesday of next week. And this weather is brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists.
Oh, it's going to be a good week of weather and whatnot. We're looking forward to it.
And we don't
get through this weekend a little bit of warm.
And we there's we don't have the humidity and no mosquitoes yet. So this is the time of the year where you have to enjoy. Don't tell me you saw mosquitoes already.
No, I'm a fan of no mosquitoes because I'm already preparing my West Nile virus lecture. But the one thing that a little bit of a humidity, I'm not saying it has to be like Louisiana humidity out there, but a little bit helps. And the reason for that is we spray more glufosinate, which is under the brand name Liberty, that we use in particularly canola, but now we see it more in soybean. Humidity helps the efficacy of that product. And as we're trying to control things like kochia and water hemp, it's going to be very important that we do have just a little bit of humidity. Everybody watch out though for your inversions, particularly early in the mornings or later in the evenings when you're spraying, but that humidity is helpful when it comes to what we're doing with Liberty. I know people have heard me say that before, and you also got to make sure you're using AMS, follow the label rules when it comes to wind speed, etc. But humidity does count for that particular product. Okay, so then also when it comes to some of the other things that are happening right now, especially we're going to talk about the livestock sector for just a moment. And one of the things that more and more farmers are doing is finding innovative crops that they can be using. One, soybeans. Wait, we already raised soybeans. But there is now a high oleic variety of soybeans that is really specially targeted for dairies. Dairy operations like those soybeans, because of the higher oleic content, it's great in their feed rations. And so what we're seeing is that as these soybeans are harvested and sold, they can bring about $1 a bushel premium, which is a really big deal right now when we see commodity prices that aren't awesome. And not every elevator can handle them because they do have to be handled like an identity preservation crop. It means you've got to keep them separate. They don't get blended in with all the other regular soybeans, if you will, that type of thing. Now, do we have this particular high oleic soybean in North Dakota yet? Not quite, because the breeding needs to get a little bit better for our more northern climate. Right now, we're seeing these higher oleic soybeans being raised in about the midline of South Dakota. Soon we'll see the extension through the breeding programs where we'll have more soybeans that are fit for northern South Dakota into North Dakota for our shorter day varieties. And once we have that, and especially as we see more large livestock operations enter the state, that gives us the opportunity for another marketplace for some of those soybeans. So one thing to keep in mind as farmers are always looking for alternatives. We want to keep that at the forefront of what they're thinking. All right. Geez, Dean, that's it.
That's
End of the day.
And we're almost done with the week too. So get out and enjoy the weather today. Again, watch out for some of that upper level smoke if you're sensitive to that over the next couple of days. So for Bridgette, myself, want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.